we have discussed about the page lifecycle. ASP.NET Page Lifecycle offers different event triggers like this page start, page init, load. Okay, so the page render, page unload. Some of the events that we have seen by going through with this sample sequence diagram. This is one way of representing the things, how every page is actually being loaded in the memory, and we can sometimes keep the required code in the respective event handler methods. It can be page load event, it can be page unload event, or it can be a page init event. So pre-render, init, okay, all these are some of the predefined events that we can attach our code. Then ASP.NET offers also some of the built-in page objects. They are, this also we have discussed in them. First one is application object, which is common to all the application context. Second one is the session, which is per user basis, writing the information. Then request is every time a new request is getting created, accordingly it can wrap some of the details like what is the browser, what should be the post method, then what is the data that needs to be sent. All these are embedded in the request. Then one more is response. Similarly, when the response given by the server, it actually wraps into this response object, and again we can get back the information from this object. Then server object is a functionality for using ASP for handling some of the server based functionalities, for handling some of the server based like we can access some server based properties, and we can access some functionalities related with the server. So in that way the page exposes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 built-in objects by default. You don't have to uh, instantiate a new object, or you don't have to inherit a particular class, because when you are creating a page, automatically all these are coming to your page code. Then global.asx and web.config are used for application control. So along with this, some settings files can also be included in your project. One such file is global.asax, which is for the settings at the global level of context. And second one is web.config, which is for the website application level settings that we can keep in this web.config file. So in that way, ASP.NET Objects provides several functionalities by these objects, as well as some settings files in that way. And mainly most of these fundamentals we will see in the practical slots by going through them, how to create an object, how to create this application context, and how to write and read the information. Uh, you just have to know there are some different objects by default provided by the ASP.NET platform. So page class, it represents a .aspx file, and automatically this page class is providing one application context, request object from this class, response object from this class, server object from this class, and session object. Okay, so these things we will see when the coding actually comes. So everything is related in their own context. Application is contextually representing the entire application of your whatever the functionalities. Then request is encapsulating the HTTP request of the current user, and it actually having all the properties loaded in that. Similarly, after processing by the request by the server, the response object is getting created, and similarly this response object is having all the data which is given back by the HTTP server. So these are the classes which we can see and understand as per their names. So we will see how these particular classes are actually again having additional functionalities. So this particular class HTTP request can can be given with this request object. So object name is request, but the class name is HTTP request. So similarly, HTTP response is the class name. When you create the .NET is automatically instantiating this object with the name response. So when you have the access of this HTTP request object, that means request dot some properties you want to access. They are like accept types, application path, browser, client certificate, content encoding, content length, content type, cookies. So all these are the properties which are exposed from this HTTP request class object. So the object name is page.request. Okay. So we will just understand in a better way. We will let us see how to create a basic web application. So go to the file, new. Okay, so this you have to remember, because whenever you are going to create a practical, this is the procedure that you have to adopt. So under this file new, take the website. Okay, so after clicking on that website, it actually opens up with some built-in templates. The versions you can change. You can take two also. There is no harm in that. But go for the latest one or any other one, and it will be providing some supported templates. Okay. So select the language as Visual C Sharp. Otherwise, you can take the VB also. Then click on this ASP.NET empty website and name this website as some IWT. Okay, so name this website as IWT. Okay, then select this ASP.NET website, empty website. Framework can be anything. Then click on OK. So all the solution files are getting created, and they will be listed here on the right side once your project is actually created. So you can see that the project name is IWT, and we have a bin which is automatically created by the .NET platform, and one settings file which is web.config file. Okay, so this is also automatically getting created. If you double click on that, it will open up a web.config file, which is nothing but a, what is this file? This, you can see, this is nothing but an XML file. Okay, so this is the root element configuration. You can see the PI, XML PI, and this is in a comment, so we need not worry about this. And basically we are having one XML file having the configuration as the root element, and it is having some inner elements, system.web, system.code.dom. So these are the inner elements. Again, these inner elements are again given with sub elements. So in that way, this web.config file is able to have some basic information of whatever your compilation framework, or what is the runtime. Along with that, you can take your own web.config settings also, which we will see when the topic comes. But basically, this setting file is automatically getting created for you whenever you are going to create a new project, new web application project in your Visual Studio. Okay, so then how to create pages in this ASP.NET is, because as we can see, I will open this folder. Okay, so you can see this entire folder is loaded here. This folder is nothing but in which is having some bin and some settings. There are no .aspx pages. Okay, so how to create the .aspx pages? Right click on this, where right click on the solution, name of the project. Okay, then add new item. It will again open the template what you want to take for your web application, whether you want to take a ASPX page, or you want to take a master page, or a JavaScript file, HTML file, or style sheet, or XML, JSON. so many templates are given here, but basically right now our concern is to create a ASPX page. Okay, so forget about this master page right now. Even if it is clicked for your IDE, just uncheck that, and you can change the name of the file to anything, but the extension should be .aspx, and click on add. Your page is now ready. Okay, so you can see here one is .aspx page and one is .aspx.cs. So CS file is the code behind file in which we can write the coding for your particular web page. Okay, so this is where we have to write our logic. And one is visual user interface. Okay, visual user interface page. This is ending with .aspx extension. And you can see this .aspx in the design mode also. So the design mode will be completely blank because as of now we do not created any we did not create any control on this .aspx page. Suppose I will write something here. Suppose I will take some input type text. Otherwise simply take a button. Okay, input type button, and value is equal to submit. In that way you can create your own uh, interfaces. This is nothing but a pure HTML, and when you go to the design you can see the submit button. Okay, so the name of the button is submit because we have written this, and this is a normal HTML markup that we are creating because this UI is for the creation of the interfaces. So here you can drag and drop some tools. Where is that toolbox? Okay, go to the toolbox and you can select the components which you want to add to your web page. Suppose I want to take the calendar, so simply drag and drop here like this. Okay, otherwise I want to take a checkbox, drag and drop, or simply you can double click on them also. Suppose I want to write something on this label, so double click on this, the label comes here, and text will be following is the UI for my web page. So in that way you can create without running. You can go back and check here in the design. You can see the text is created here, the calendar is created here. Okay, so the calendar is here, the text is here, the checkbox is here, and simply when you run that, it will be loaded in the browser, and accordingly the user interface will be created for the users. Okay, so in that way we can take all the controls which are by default available. Some are data aware controls, some are validation controls, and some are login controls. Almost every kind of feature you can get from this toolbox. Okay, suppose you don't want to take any server side component, you can simply take the HTML markup also. HTML markup means input text. Okay, so suppose if I give that input type text is automatically created for me. So this is an HTML, but this is not HTML. This is ASP.NET Server Control, but this is HTML controls that we are creating using the markup. Getting? So in that way we can create the user interface on your web pages, and accordingly you can write the coding. Where you have to write the code? You have to write the coding here in this code behind file. This is called as code behind file because this code will be only working for this page only. Okay, whatever the control that you have taken. Suppose the control name is the name of the control is here. You can see this is calendar one. Okay, so without compilation I can go to this page and I can access directly that object. What is the name of the object? Calendar one dot. All these extensions are available. All these properties are available for me, so that I can create my own functionality. Okay, so whatever you want to give the date, you can see the intelligence. Date time simply given with the long, then long ticks, then integer year, month, date, then year, month, date. So all these possibilities are there. So you can give the year, then month, then date. So in that way we can create the so today's date is selected. So when this particular page is being run, today's date is automatically selected by default by the web page. So all these are the implementations, and what we were discussing is about the page request object. Okay, so page request object is exposing so many properties. Some of the properties are like accept types. That means what are the mine multimedia internet this formats which are supported by the browser. So what are they, and whether it is supporting that we can see from this property. Then application path, it is actually the virtual path of your root web server where your application is residing. Then browser, it gets the information about the requesting client's browser. Suppose the user is connected from Safari and some users are connected from Internet Explorer. Accordingly, from your server side, from your server side coding, you can check how many are actually connected from the Safari or how many are actually connected from the Internet Explorer. So in that way, we can have the access from this browser property. Then client certificate, current request client security certificate. Okay, whether this client certificate is encrypted one or not, that we can see. Content encoding, what is the format of the encoding? UTF-8, UTF-16. So these are the formattings of the encoding. Then content length, how many bytes, how many bytes of content is actually sent by the client. Then content type, cookies, what is the information which is actually saved in the cookies we can get from request object, request.cookies. Current execution file path, what is the current ASPX page file path which is provided by this property. Then file path, this is the virtual path, and files, multiple files which we are uploading, we can get back to them. Then form, headers, what is the current HTTP method, and then is authenticated or not, params, path, path info, physical path, query string, raw URL. That means it is exposing these many properties through which you can have your fundamentals of programming being done. Suppose you want to authenticate whether you want to check whether this particular user is authenticated or not. You can take help of this is authenticated property, and if it is authenticated, then only the page will be running. Otherwise, it will simply redirect it to another page. Okay. Then request type, server variables, total bytes, URL, your user agent, that means it is nothing but the browser. You can take all the properties of the browser also. What is the version, what is the culture, okay. So what is the name of the browser? So all these things will be again available from this user agent. User host address, what is the IP address from which user has connected, blah blah blah. So we can see these many properties are available only as you are creating a simple web page. So we can see that demonstration also. So simply go back to this page. It is nothing we have written up till now. Okay, we have not loaded anything also. But when you type page, see the object page, which is already created for you. You don't have to create HTTP. Okay, HTTP request. In that way, you don't have to create page dot request, or otherwise page is also not required. Request dot, see the properties, access types, browser, client certificate, cookies, current execution file path, files, filter, form, and whatever the symbol is denoted for the properties, and others are for the functions, methods. Okay, so headers information and parameters, path info, query string, server variables. So all these are available only when you are creating a simple page. Okay, so you have to simply call request dot cookies. Then automatically all the cookies are getting loaded in this particular code statement. So this is how we can access the things from the code behind file. Okay, so all these properties are supported. Suppose you want to check the user agent. So what you have to do is request dot user agent. Okay, so you can see gets the raw user agent string of the client browser. So if you are going to print this, how to print response dot write, because it's not console. If it is a console application, then we need to write console dot write line, but this is a user agent. Okay, so what it will do? It will print the current browser agent name, current browser's name. You can try it out in the practical slots. Okay, so in that way, we can access the request objects. Similarly, okay, there is an example that is given for this code. Mm, the same example here. If request.browser.browser is equal to IE, if suppose the request object which is having the property browser and the name of the browser is equal to IE, and if it is less than 6, that means the version number is less than 6, then you want to simply convey the user, please upgrade your Internet Explorer. Otherwise what you want to do, if it is not IE in this case, you can say that please use some another browser. So in that way we can take help of uh, these methods, request and request dot object method or request dot properties. Okay, so from this object known as request. So this is a VB code actually. The similar coding can also be done in C# format also. So pretty much the code is same. Request.browser.browser is equal to IE. Then open the curly braces. In that curly braces again check with the if condition. So in that way also you can do the programming for the C# language. So as again I am reiterating, language is not at all important in the .NET framework. Sometimes the code will be in VB and sometimes the code can be in C#. So basically you are doing the common thing in the .NET framework. It doesn't much affect the application. Then second object is response. It is also similar to the request. After processing by the server, it will be creating a unique response out of the resources uh, that are given for that functionality, and accordingly it will give the properties like buffer, content type, cookies, expires. That means how much time it will take to expire this response. We can clear the content output from this method, and current execution can be stopped by calling this method, and then we can flush out all the buffered information to the output client, that means to the browser. Sometimes we can redirect this current request to the another URL. Okay, so we can redirect simply to a new URL, and we can simply write the information on the browser. Okay, so we can simply write the information on the browser. So the example like this is, here we have taken response.redirect. So this is the method. The redirect method will be as per the selected index of this selected item of this drop down list. So there is a drop down in the page load event. A drop down is there which is added with 3 URLs. One is microsoft.com, second one is rocks, and third one is again some another URL that is here. And user clicks on the, after selecting this combo drop down list, user will click on this button. So as per the current selection of the user, that URL will be loaded in the browser. So in that way we can take the help of the response.redirect method, which is again given by the response object. Okay, so how to access this? Simple, response dot write, okay, or redirect. I will say that's all. Okay, so it will be redirected once this page is loaded, because you can see this statement is being executed in the page load, As soon as this page is loaded, I will be redirected to the google.com. Getting? So in that way, we have the access of these response and redirect methods. So this is the example of this previous code. Once I select the drop down list, I can click on that button. Corresponding URL which is loaded by the which is selected by the user is actually loaded in the browser. Okay, so similarly we can have response.write and response.write files also. You can see here response.write file, and sometimes we are accessing the information from request object, and the output file from this text content is written by using this method write file. So this is about the page request response objects, and we have seen only two objects. First one is this one, okay, request object, and second one is response object. Then comes with the state management techniques, in which we are going to discuss with session, application, and some another important objects. Okay, so any doubts from this theoretical topic? We got the page life cycle in this PPT. Okay, so started with the page life cycle, having these many different page triggers. The page triggers are page pre-init, init complete, load complete, render, unload. So these are some of the events, and accordingly the page lifecycle provides us the opportunity to code at respective points whether to handle the rendering or to whether to handle this unload method in that way. Then we have seen some by default page objects. 5 default objects are supplied by the page, so these are available in the page object. That means application is available by default, session is available, as this is giving error, so that's why it is not open. Okay, so session is available, then response is available, request is, you can see the object name here, request is available, then server, again server dot transfer, server dot execute. So some of the methods are there. So that means these 5 objects are by default supported without instantiating this object. Okay, you don't have to write http server is equal to new http server. So in that way, we don't have to write the code because it is already being created by the ASP.NET system.web.ui.page. So this is the base class from which all these objects are getting accessed. So this is the page. Now this is the base class page, system.web.ui.page, through which we are getting hold of all these objects so that you can program for your website. Okay, so this is basically containing the information of the ASP.NET page lifecycle and ASP.NET page objects. So these two topics are available. One is page lifecycle and second one is page objects. So these are the page objects. So this is an important topic under the ASP.NET fundamentals. And we have seen with some properties what are the available methods and properties for the request and response objects also. Then next thing is the state management. Okay, so state management is also a very essential topic in ASP.NET. Not only in the ASP.NET, you take any server-side scripting language, state management is an important thing to drive your application. So to drive your application properly, you need to fall back on these state management techniques. And what First one is view state, second one is query string, cookies, session, and application. Okay. So basically, what is the state management? Can anybody say what is the state management? Anybody knows? Like you might have done with the PHP, or you might have worked in JSP or any other server side technology. So state management is an important feature which you have to save the information for the consecutive web requests coming from the coming from unique user or as well as from different users. What is the state management? Can anyone say what we do with this state management? If you don't know, no worries. I will.
Stateless something.
Yes, yes, yes. That's right. Actually, uh, uh, HTTP protocol is actually stateless protocol. Okay. What is mean by this stateless protocol? Stateless means suppose you are an user and you want to log into the gmail.com. So Gmail is an application as such we can consider it's a web application. Okay. Suppose you want to log into the Gmail application and for the first time you have to be authenticated. You have to be authorized. Uh, you have to be authenticated before getting authorized. Okay. So how to do this authentication? Basically, you will be given with some username, password. After that, matching details are provided by the user. He is going to be given with a token, and every time the token is matching, then only he can be said as an authenticated user. Why it is being so? Because HTTP is a stateless protocol. It cannot remember anything. Okay, so it cannot remember anything. What is the previous request and how many times a particular user was actually connected in a given day. So all this information cannot remember by this HTTP protocol. HTTP protocol's purpose is to take the request from the client, process at the server side, and get back the information again to the client, and that's done. It will never remember what is the previous request by the same client. Suppose any secondary, uh, suppose client server, this is the first request, the response is given back by the server. And again, a second request will be given by the client, and this will be again processed by the server, giving back with the whatever the resource he asked for. Similarly, for the third request. So this keeps on happening every time, and the server cannot remember whether the second request is coming from the same person or it is coming from some another person. So there can be C3, he can be C0. Okay, so C0. So it cannot remember, the server cannot remember whether this is coming from the same client or it is coming from the another client, because the purpose of the server is to send back with the whatever the request information, and that's all. It will remove the entire information from the memory. Whatever the inputs or the request information, it will simply truncate after this process is served by the server. Why it was created in that way is because web applications are naturally made for larger number of users. That means in a Windows application, in a Windows given setup, you may be accessing as a single user or at least 10 users or some 20 users, not more than some 50 users. So a same computer cannot be accessed by not more than 50 or 100 users. So that's why it should not be scalable. So even though the Windows application is not scalable, there is no worrying point there, because a Windows setup can be accessed by Windows executable can be accessed by the administrator or some guest users or whoever is sitting on that computer. It cannot be like that 10,000 users are getting connected to that Windows. Okay. But web applications are naturally meant for larger consumers. Sometimes millions of users are connected to your web application in a single given span of time. So that means in a given minute, suppose you are talking about Facebook, in a single given minute, maybe some 10 million users are simultaneously accessing that website. So that's what the scalability. Okay. So your application should be scalable. And whenever we are talking about the scalability, you cannot keep the information. That means the state. The information cannot be, because you cannot write millions of records every single second for all the users of your website. Okay, so that is what we call as state. Okay, so when we are talking in terms of the larger consumers, you cannot maintain the state properly, and it is not needed also. But you are working from a Windows application, you can write some information in that Windows or in memory or in database, anywhere you want to write, you can have that advantage. And the state cannot be maintained, because automatically the state can be maintained by your program, by accessing that in the by storing that in the operating system or somewhere deep under the memory. But this is not the case with the web application. So that's why HTTP protocol is created as a stateless protocol. So basically the limitation is the HTTP protocol is itself is a stateless protocol, and whatever the applications that we create based on these HTTP protocols are again stateless applications. So web applications are in general stateless applications. Okay, so that means they are like Gajinis. You ask something, it will deliver and do not remember anything after that. Again, you ask something, it will process that, and after some time, it will be removed from memory. So in that way, the statelessness will be maintained on top of this HTTP protocol, and web applications are run by using the HTTP and IP protocols slash IP protocols. Okay, so say by using this IP addresses, by using this HTTP protocol, your web applications will be running the web pages. So that's what you need to understand first of all. So as this is a stateless, the web applications are stateless. Sometimes uh, we are coming across with some limitations also. So what are the limitations? We'll just give an example before. As the HTTP is stateless, now what is the problem? Suppose a user is logged into the Facebook, suppose for example, logged into the Facebook, and first time as the request came, you are given with the login name and password, you have matched with that, and you have provided that yes, he is an authenticated user. Okay, then after some time you want to access some access from that Facebook. But as HTTP is stateless, the server cannot remember you. Again, you have to be authenticated again from your side. So this keeps on going, because on the server side, you are not at all remembered as you are an authenticated user. Okay, the server is not at all remembering you as an authenticated user. For every request, it is taking as a fresh first time request. It is taking as a first and unique request. So that's why using some techniques like you can see here, which are written as view state, query string, cookies, session, and application, we are mimicking that your application knows you who you are. I am repeating, by using these settings or some objects, we are mimicking, that means we are actually tricking the web server, we are actually tricking the web server so that you are actually remembered at the server side. So that is the fundamental of maintaining the state by using the state management techniques. Okay, so the state management techniques are very important. You take any programming language or any technology, state management techniques are an essential part of implementing your web application development. So in the .NET framework also, in the ASP.NET, we got some different state management techniques, and we will see their usages, their limitations, and with some practical coding, how to use them for your application benefits.